Here we are again. Longer days, budding flowers, warmer weather. Wouldn't you know, it's already April again. And with the immense success of last year's video of Shigatsu wa Kimi no Uso, Your Lie in April, I wanted to follow up this year since we're technically still in that 10-year anniversary just of its final episode air date. I glowed this anime up last year, and for good reason, but I want to take a different approach to the anime this year. There is very good reason to keep talking about this one, and many reasons why everyone uses it as a way to break people's hearts for fun, you psychos, but I came across something the other day that kind of spoke to me. It's actually quite ironic, but how many people realized Kousei wanted to die while he was in the prime of his youth and returned to his piano playing, while Kaori wanted to live, yet she was dying, having yet to reach her full potential. It's a really interesting dynamic that I had not originally thought of, which is why I read all of your comments, but I really enjoy the idea because it's not something that you really think about. Whether you really see it or not, there is irony in this anime, and this is just but one very good example. Last year, I focused on 3 key parts to the anime: renewal and happiness, friendship and support, and trauma and growth. If we break these 3 categories down and deconstruct them a little bit, there becomes a lot more this anime manages to do without explicitly drawing attention to it. In fact, Your Lie in April is even more emotionally charged than what I had laid it out to be a year ago. Before I move on, I just wanted to give a quick but absolutely massive shout out to everyone who showed up to this channel last year and this year so far. It's so crazy being so close to that 1,000 subscribers mark, and just check out these impressions from last year. So, thank you everyone. I have lots planned for the spring, and I'm expecting a fun summer here too, for once. Okay, let's get on with the video now. Let's start with Kaori's name and the way it's spelled. These are the kanji for Miyazono, her last name. You can also see them if you turn captions on. The first kanji, Miya, means palace or shrine. It could also mean constellations or even princess. And what are princesses often associated with? A palace, royalty, happiness, perhaps? If we take it to mean shrine, Kaori's shrine could be seen as the concert hall, or if you choose to look at it as a place to worship something and not necessarily as the place in of itself, more emphasis on the object, her violin could be seen as that shrine, that object of worship. Think of the way she's presented beneath golden lights as she performs on stage. If we think of her last name as a palace, this could refer to the concert hall where the anime frequently takes place. Whether it's her or Kousei doesn't matter, since the anime is about both characters. Kaori cannot exist as she is without Kousei, and Kousei cannot overcome his past and live for the future for Kaori without her. Breaking down the concept of a palace even further, religiously, a palace can refer to heaven, the place where gods reside, a plane that is not of earth, reserved for some kind of worship being, etc. The anime actually foreshadows its own ending with the first part of her last name, insinuating that she will eventually return to that palace of heaven, that place beyond Earth where Garden Paradise awaits. A metaphorical play on the Garden of Eden might be a bit of a stretch here, but I'll explain where the terms garden and paradise come from in a minute. There are many interpretations that can be had regarding Kaori's name, Miyazono, and this in literary theory is known as slippage. Her name loses its meaning because there is so much meaning. Excess, but just wait, it gets more interesting. More on the kanji for Miya. Violins are stringed instruments and create some of the most beautiful music. Oftentimes associated with an orchestra, this instrument is one part of a whole of the orchestra, a body that is associated with classical music. And during what periods was classical music most popular and where? Middle Ages Europe, but this is just the first character in her last name. The second kanji, Zono, sometimes pronounced Zono, means garden, park, orchard, but can also mean place, world, environment, and this is where garden shows up again. If Miyazono means a palace garden, what palace gardens come to mind first that can also mean a shrine? The Garden of Eden is one guess, hence where paradise comes from. But think about how Miya also means constellation. A synonym for constellation could be starry, celestial, etc. Stars, especially those really vibrant pictures you see from space telescopes, are also referred to as the heavens in many types of literature, most commonly in creative works these days. So there's a lot of weight that gets added to the idea that her name is a direct, albeit subtle, hint at the anime's conclusion, a world without Kaori. Briefly breaking down her first name, though, Kaori means fragrance, fragrant, with springtime being a period of renewal and happiness, warm weather, blossoming / return of life, flowers and tree blooms. Her first name directly correlates to the spring season the storyline in April takes place in. Remember when I said the kanji Mia also means princess? The first kanji in Kousei means public, duke, prince. The second kanji, sei, means life, living. Kaori was Kousei's princess, and the music hall was their palace, their garden in spring where life could blossom again. Kaori had to die so Kousei could live, but neither character ever mentioned the irony of their names for a reason. The etymology of their names would have directly spoiled the ending. It takes a little work, but it's not hard to put 2 and 2 together here. What's even more interesting is that both characters suffer from some kind of illness or disorder / condition. Kaori and Kousei were quite literally made for each other. To top off this first section though, Kousei's surname, first name, Arima means exist, Ari, and horse, Ma. Horses are strong, proud animals and were often used as transport for the introduction of the automobile. Is this also perhaps referring to how nobles used to be the primary individuals that owned horses? A privilege bestowed upon those of the high social statuses? Even samurai used horses in ancient Japan, and analyzing them as symbols of power, one might make a connection to the horse and music, the metaphorical power the art form has. Alright, so sticking to the same structure as last year, if we break the themes of friendship and support down, we find that that's not really so cut and dry. Obviously, Kousei and Kaori do eventually become friends, but do they really though? Kousei is introduced to her through Tsubaki and Matori, but we don't ever see them call each other a friend. Not officially. It's through mostly body language and the way the anime centers its focus on the relationship Kousei and Kaori build, but it doesn't actually tell you they're friends. Does that mean they weren't? Of course not. But if you want to get as literal as possible, then no. Rather, they become something that transcends that idea of being someone's friend. Kaori represented life haunted by death, whereas Kousei represented death haunted by life. Let me explain. Kaori knew she was dying long before she met Kousei, but she didn't tell anyone because she didn't want the burden of her plight cast onto anyone else, especially not Kousei. She did everything she could in the time she had, and that says a lot. She was selfless, and selfish at times too, more on that in a second, caring, but most of all, she was exceptional. Everything she did was for the betterment of someone else. She didn't have time to spend on herself, so she spent that time and energy on everyone around her, always smiling, laughing, dancing. The anime did a phenomenal job of masking its climax. Kaori's death during Kousei's performance. Everything led up to that one singular moment where he was finally able to stand on his own 2 feet again without her. Her death perfectly coincides with that, as the anime uses it as a way to show that she accomplished what she had set out to do. Does this make her a little selfish, dragging Kousei along and forcing him to face the traumas of his past? Yes, but the same argument can be made that she did that because it was the only way to motivate him. Everyone handles trauma differently, but she saw that spark in him and she didn't want to let his own flame flicker away while hers was burning off the last of its fuel. I'm not breaking down the trauma and growth section of this video yet though, so I'll save the rest of that for a little later. If you view Kaori's selfishness through the lens of, well, she was trying to help him, that's fine. That is what she was doing. But was this really the best way to support him? Think about it like this. People are generally unmotivated, yeah? So was Kousei. He hadn't willingly touched a piano since the death of his mother, and being the star kid he was when he was younger, there was an enormous amount of potential hidden below the surface, just waiting to be unleashed. It's a double-edged sword. Kaori had to inflict that pain if she wanted to support him while harboring her own pain. She took the role of supporting both herself and Kousei until she eventually gave that line a little slack, letting him loose little by little until he was finally able to manage his own life again. Does this really make Kaori a friend, or is she more of an enemy in this sense? Well, given what we know about the anime and some of the more hidden ideas behind it, with her name also meaning princess, it's probably safe to say that she wasn't doing the things she did to antagonize Kousei. Instead, she did what only a friend can do. She lifted him up, brought him down gently, and repeated the process until he was strong enough to face his current reality and his future. Friends are kind of like seesaws. Someone has to sit on the other end before you can move up, but if the weight is distributed unequally, you either stay on the ground or get stuck in the air. Sticking with the metaphor of the seesaw here, what end do you think Kaori sat on, and what end do you think Kousei sat on? Not sure? Think back to what I said about the dynamism of friendship between the two. Was Kaori the one stuck in the air, or was it Kousei? The ride, or whatever you want to call it, can only be operated by two people at a time, representing a high and a low. Those positions can be swapped and you still receive the same results, just on a different end. However, if you add weight to one end to counterbalance the seesaw, perhaps with some emotional baggage? If your answer to my earlier question remains inconclusive, or you said both, you're close. If you also said they swap positions, gradually going up and down on each respective end through each half of the anime, you have the exact answer I'm looking for. As Kaori's burden grew, she gradually lifted Kousei higher into the air, but as she took on some of the baggage that weighed him down, she grew heavier, causing her end of the seesaw to descend. Kousei is not at the maximum height he can be until just before Kaori's death in episode 22, although you could say her spirit died several episodes before then. Kaori was Kousei's support system from the start, always there to lift him up, but also bring him down when he got too high, so as not to make the same mistakes as Icarus did when he flew too close to the sun. It's a Greek myth often referenced in modern media and literature. Like an injured bird learning to fly again, Kousei was given wings, but he had to learn to use them. A bird would stay closer to the ground if it knew it was injured, gaining the strength to fly again, instead of leaping off of the tallest branch in a tree. And that leads me to the third and final main chapter of this video, trauma and growth. Like I said earlier, everyone has different traumas, and everyone copes with those traumas differently. For some people, it takes months to get over something. For others, it takes years. Some people never recover. In this instance, Kousei is the second of the three types. Kousei's trauma stemmed from his mother, who quite literally beat the piano into him at times. His only reprieve was his cat, Chelsea, who died when he was just a child. And this is a trauma that has several triggers. The thought of his mother, black cats, and pianos. So how does one overcome certain traumas, like Kousei's for instance? By confronting it, immersing oneself back into those triggers, and molding those feelings, aches and pains and experiences into something new. Not all traumas work this way, but for Kousei, it was the only way to overcome what had been a tumultuous past. Once Kaori enters the picture, those traumas are reawakened and pushed into the forefront of his mind and daily life. Taking a psychoanalytic approach to things here, Kousei was trapped within his own mind. His id didn't know what to do with the memories and feelings he'd grown to repress. But Kaori represented that return of his repressed desires, to play the piano and overcome his traumas. The Freudian id operates on the pleasure principle and represents primal drives and desires. His ego, the Freudian one, was supposed to regulate that id in the external world around him, but couldn't because he refused to face reality, something the ego functions off of. Psychologically, his mind was a hotbed of repressed desires, emotional decay, and even feelings of guilt, all repressed emotions represented by his id. Lastly, there's the superego, the moral conscience. Kousei grew up thinking that the abuse he received from his mother was normal, and that he was to follow her every command with no room for personality or free will, playing the piano like some kind of robot. While this part of his psyche is already in place by the time he meets Kaori, it doesn't fully develop until much later in the anime, after she's already gone. While this may seem ineffective to some, the idea is that these parts of Kousei's psyche hadn't been fully developed until he met Kaori, who helped him grow not only as a person, but as a friend. If you think about that, clearly there's some level of growth there, something that he wouldn't have been able to achieve on his own. I think the best thing about this is the fact that he spread that love, because what else would you call the attention Kaori gave him to other people? While this video is really only just about the dynamic between Kaori and Kousei, several side characters also deserve some mention here because everyone grew. Tsubaki, Watari, Nagi, Takashi, Emi. Kaori underwent a lot of character growth herself as well, but she was the anchor that, instead of dragging everyone down, held them in place and supported them. It's hard to have a good story without some level of animosity or antagonism, and Your Lie in April is no different in that regard. But I'm not talking about an actual antagonist here. If you really want to get into things, you could even call Kousei his own enemy, his own antagonist. But you could also say that time was the real enemy, as this anime only takes place over the span of a year in 22 episodes. In order to fully achieve that growth that all of the characters had to undergo, there had to be enough time to get it done. While it seems like a depressing prospect, it actually helps to further Kaori's influence. She spends an increasing amount of time in the hospital as the anime gets into its second half, but she never stops inspiring others to be the best versions of themselves. Hence why Kousei keeps moving forward despite the setbacks he does eventually face. There is something truly special about this anime, and I don't really know how else to describe it. In some ways, it's kind of like that melancholic hope. You're not sure what's going to happen, and life is kind of a drag, but you know it's springtime and that everything around you is also alive. What this anime does in that regard is exceptional. It's like a comfort zone that you can fall back on, despite the challenge it is to watch and rewatch for a lot of people. Yes, I've read all of your comments, literally, on last year's video, and I think just about all of them have a reply from me too. From the OST to the visuals to the overall messaging behind the anime, there's just nothing else quite like it. On the one hand, you have a story about a sick, dying girl who's trying to make the most of her remaining time, but on the other, you have a story about a girl who does everything she can to defy the odds and still manages to live a happy life while inspiring others to do the same. This anime is just that rich, and I could spend an entire day talking about it. Before I decided to rewatch this anime last year, I don't think it was even in my top 10. It's now a solid top 5, but that's because, well, for starters, it has a clear plot structure and you can actively see the changes in just about every character as time goes on. But it also has one of the most powerful OSTs to ever grace the vast library of YouTube videos and millions of people's ears worldwide. Honestly, I don't think there's much else I can say to it at this point. Your Lie in April is just such a phenomenal work of art, and yes, that includes the literary devices it employs and the music as well. If you want to sum it up in one single word, it's humanistic, contemporary, modern, and loving. So as the weather warms once more and April brings its playful and sometimes volatile musings of spring, let this anime be one that you can proudly say you've watched. After all, there wouldn't be a Lie in April if there wasn't someone to tell it to.